when you go through a real experience that it's just really touching into your core and you talk about it, you actually are reaching a lot of people because we're not that different. It's not about attention deficit. This is a myth that people with ADHD cannot actually have attention and focus. They can. It's attention dysregulation. I think there's a good gap between love and hate. I can meet myself in the middle with some sort of acceptance, some compassion, maybe. That helps because, listen, when everybody is criticizing you for something and you on top of that also bitch at yourself for the same thing, it's not going to get you anywhere.
And I hope you will reach more people. And I think your intention was to make them feel heard and understood. And that sounds so wonderful. This is the Doubtless podcast, here to help you change from a state of doubt and insecurity towards a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. I'm your host, coach and psychologist Julian, and my guests are remarkable, ambitious humans who share their stories of doubtful moments, of their insecurities, and how that shaped their successes today. Evie, I'm so looking forward to this because we have talked so many times now about your journey from about YouTube, the journey that you have started, and at the same time your core topics with ADHD, but also motivation and productivity. And I remember still in university, whenever we started talking to each other, it went immediately deep. We couldn't stay superficial or in any boring topics, and immediately had to go really deep. So I think I'm really open to where this goes, but I think you have a very clear idea of what you want to say. So I'll give you some room for that. But I think just to give anyone who's listening now the idea of where you started out and what's your main topic of expertise, I think it would be great to hear a little bit your journey that you can describe, where you started out and how you got to having a YouTube channel with, I think, about 17,000 subscribers now about ADHD and productivity. Yeah, can you give a little context for that?
Sure. As you said, it always starts with a random question and then it goes real deep, real quick. And I think this is a little bit what happened with with my channel. I wanted to create a video that I felt comfortable about talking because at the time I was part of a YouTube academy. Ali Abdal was doing this YouTube academy, and he
Oh yeah, I
had
know that.
every week you have to like do a homework to make a video. And I knew I'm going to be seen by at least one of those people who is doing the evaluation. At the time, my channel was super small, so I really didn't have anxiety of like putting videos on because 200 people are going to see it, kind of who cares. But at this point, I was like, okay, you actually should make some sense now because somebody may actually watch it and God forbid give you evaluation. And I was like, okay, what do I feel most comfortable talking about ADHD? And the video that at the time blew up and actually still like the most watched video was about ADHD and dopamine and why and how you react differently. And quite honestly, I did have some mm, knowledge behind it because of my 5 years of psychology education. You cannot just erase this, right? But it's mostly me who sat down and spoke about my experience. And I was thinking, okay, this is going to relate to maybe two or three more people because it's so personal. But at least I know what I'm saying is not wrong because at least one person, me,
Yeah.
is really going through this. It's true. I'm not lying. And I just felt more comfortable talking. And then when this video actually became so watched and I read the comments, which were, oh my gosh, I finally feel seen, or like I've seen so many videos on this topic, but I've never felt so understood. I remembered something from some book I read at some point, memory, great ADHD thing. Specific names of anything just don't exist in your head. But the thing in that book was that I, I'm getting distracted here. This is the moments when I'll like cut it off because I realize how I want to say one thing and then I'm going into a completely other thing.
Real life ADHD.
Yeah. But the thing in that book was that when you go through a real experience that it's just really touching it to your core and you talk about it, you actually are reaching a lot of people because we're not that different. And if you really manage to explain something that you truly went through, you may not reach everybody, but the people who will be reached by that will be truly touched and it will actually matter. And I'm trying to remember this and I'm trying to let this guide me because otherwise, if I go with what I find interesting, my channel will be even more chaotic than what it is now. So yeah, it's an interesting journey with YouTube because on one hand, I have ADHD that I feel comfortable talking about, but also I have ADHD. So I get bored with consistency. I get bored with routines. I get bored with talking about similar things. And my head is like, oh, I saw a bird that made me think about memory. And I actually made a video about using a bird in your taking it in your garage, which sounds very creepy, to explain how memory consolidation works. That was a video that is on my channel completely randomly because I listened to my head and it doesn't perform well. So I have this battle between me and YouTube and the algorithm and what does it take to build a
Hmm.
channel.
All right. So immediately jumping into the ADHD topic and also how that affects you. But I think before we jump even further, like, can you give an idea? For me, I mean, I did study psychology too. ADHD was not a big topic back then, and I don't think they said anything about it really. Uh, but what is it? Because there's also ADHD and ADD.
Mm.
And can you just give an understanding of what it is and what is it not?
Yes. Oh, yes. Let me start from the ADD thing. ADD is an outdated term for ADHD. So ADD is the part without the hyperactivity. So people with ADD didn't always have the hyperactivity part. So a way to actually have a broader term that include all those people is ADHD. And now we have the understanding that there are three main types of ADHD: the predominantly hyperactivity type, the predominantly inattentive type, which some people still call ADD, and the combined type, where both symptoms, symptoms from both dominant, let's say, profiles can be seen in the person. So this is just the clarification of what is ADHD. It's not a separate thing. It's part of ADHD now. It's the inattentive part of ADHD.
Mm,
And when we use this acronym ADHD, it's funny to actually say what is the definition behind because there are two things that I disagree with and one that almost most current clinical psychologists disagree with. So ADHD means attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And what most people currently working with ADHD will disagree with is that it's not about attention deficit. This is a myth that people with ADHD cannot actually have attention and focus. They can. It's attention dysregulation. You don't have
mm,
full control on where your attention goes, for how long you're going to be focused on that thing, and when you're going to sober up from the hyperactivity on that thing. So people with ADHD have a very good capability to focus, but they struggle to regulate where their attention goes. And the other thing that I disagree, and I want to clarify why it's important to be cautious with this as a disorder part. I try not to look at ADHD as a disorder or as a problem, but more of a phenomenon. And I know a lot of people who have very strongly expressed symptoms of ADHD. will feel triggered by this as if I'm not validating their experience. And that's why I really want to say for some people, it's very difficult, but I try to look at this as a result. The result is that you're struggling, but why are you struggling? And why, to a huge extent, is the context, the environment. And research in environment actually shows that if you put people with ADHD in enriched, challenging environment, they actually become very creative, very active, very initiative problem solvers. Um, so what I understand from myself, from what I read, and from what I hear from other people, is that where you are as a context, as an environment, matters a lot, whether or not this will become a problem for you or not. And unfortunately, no matter your specific experience, it is very possible that for you having ADHD, you do not thrive in a highly structured, highly controlled environment. But that's very common for many people. And that's why people are in so much, I think, pain with their ADHD symptoms, because it's very common that they're in a situation that is just difficult for them.
Okay, I think there's already so much in there that I mean, I read through ADHD symptoms and how to deal with that, but I think that is already a very deep look into, first of all, that it's a dysregulation. It's still not widely spread in all the articles that I read. Nobody really mentions that. Then because that gives a completely different idea, because in the beginning I also thought it was just this that you're not able to concentrate at all, that your focus is just like, you try to look at this and then your attention goes with anything, but it's not the case.
No.
And on top of that is the I think widely spread. I had some clients also with ADHD and I was working with them, and most of the research that I found was like, oh, they need a structured, clear cut environment, that they have their routines and rules, then they will thrive. And they had quite some struggles with that. And so that was really mixed information, or mixed results, at least, that I have gotten. And so for me, it was very interesting to see that, wait, what are the guidelines? And the guidelines say these things, and I don't get the results that they show me.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of myths to debunk with that. Also, my girlfriend and I talk about this a lot because, well, she's not clinically diagnosed with it, but pretty likely that she has that too. Is that sometimes she is hyper focused and concentrated, and whenever I would try to or interrupt her, and she's like, "No, go away! I'm concentrating right now.
Do
Don't
not
fuck it up."
interrupt my activity. This is just, don't stay away from that person. They're in their moment, in their
Yes.
element. To unhealthy um, extreme sometimes, because people in hyperactivity can forget to drink water, can forget to eat. They don't sleep. They just want. Their entire existence right now is on what they're working on. This is the most important thing, and do not dare to interrupt it, because you're gonna unlock the rage inside, and they'll never be able to go back to it, because the attention dysregulation is that if you don't tell yourself when to stop, and if you do stop, when to start again. And they may
Mm.
feel kind of this unfulfillment inside, because they were so excited about something. They just really wanted to get it done, and you interrupted it, and now it will never be done. Absolutely never will be done. And that's, kind of irritating. So
Yes.
stay away from her. Let her finish. Unless you see that she's passing out and she needs some food or drinks, just quietly give the options around her with your arm reach, and leave the
So
room.
she can continue, like, just grab and snack, continue focusing on it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And when she's done, she'll be done for good. Like, people with ADHD usually have their obsession with something, but once it's
Mhm.
done, they move on, and it's never interesting again.
That is so fascinating. Um, because I guess for myself, I wouldn't say I have those symptoms of ADHD. And then to understand, I think that comes also in, even if you, if the listener knows, clicked on this episode to learn more about ADHD, but doesn't have the symptoms of it. I think it's really interesting to get that perspective, because if somebody in an environment has those symptoms, then they just have different preferences on how to be dealt with in those situations, right? And you smile already when somebody's like interrupting you, like get furious about this. And I think that's just good to know when you're someone who does not understand what's happening, but still interacts with that person.
Yeah, especially that a lot of times I hear people asking the question how I mean in my comments on my videos I see sometimes people ask the question, so how do I deal with my partner who has ADHD, right? Uh, and naturally you go and ask the person, right? But to be honest, just because you have ADHD doesn't mean you understand it, and sometimes it can be so difficult to explain because it doesn't make sense to you yourself. I was not making sense to me until I started paying attention and trying to really go into understanding my behavior, reading or like talking and relating to other people to come back to me and reflect on it. And oh, that's why I'm doing this. And then you can go and explain it. But you're not
Yeah.
born with that skill. You're born with that way of thinking and behaving and functioning, but you're not born with the understanding of it, and it can be really difficult to explain to others as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a thing in relationships, I would say, to be not only the partner who has to understand the person with ADHD, but being the person with ADHD, having to make sense of yourself for yourself and how crazy sometimes you feel, and also to explain to the other person and try to sound less crazy. Yeah, it's a challenge.
And I think that brings up the next topic. Is there a difference between men and women when it comes to ADHD?
My PhD was in gender differences, and I do not want to draw gender differences. They are, that's my opinion. Some research will support it, some will not. But overall, most of the gender differences in behavior that we see is because of how we socialize girls and boys. It is not biological. The brain, like if you look at brain scans, and I was reading this book. I forgot the name. Of course, I forgot the name of it. But it was this very famous neuroscientist who also has a channel on YouTube, Dr. Amen, I think. And his book is all about his practice on brain scans and how the brain of a, let's say, neurotypical person looks like and the brain of neurodivergent person looks like. And you can see the differences, and not only the areas but what get active, when it gets active, and etc etc. But that is that is it. There's no gender difference in that. It's just we do behave differently, yes, but it's because we're socialized differently. For example, one just some to put into context, but women are in general a bit more socialized to be a caregiver,
Hmm.
and they really try to do something for somebody else. Whereas a man, for example, is a bit more allowed to be inattentive, chaotic, to be, impulsive. So you may actually think, oh, well, then it makes sense that probably a lot of boys were underdiagnosed because their behavior was seen as normal. But then, because boys actually do bring more attention to themselves with their behavior because they are more chaotic, noisy, inattentive. They're just usually the not so disciplined child in the class. Because they bring more attention, they receive more attention. They actually get diagnosed more.
Hmm. Oh, okay. That also makes sense. Weirdly counterintuitively.
So
Okay, but that's, I think, I don't know. It's felt just like a stupid question that probably a lot of people have. Because also in my mind, that uh, there is also inherently a difference between men and women because of the cycle of the woman. And so, did you look into if that has any effects on the ADHD symptoms, or is there anything that is known about whether it's maybe stronger or less strong depending on it?
To be honest, I haven't, so I cannot
Hmm.
give a educated opinion on that. Um, but when you do look into ADHD, you usually read mostly about dopamine and to some extent about norepinephrine, um, which are neurotransmitters. And what gets bothered during a menstrual cycle is the hormones. So it sounds interesting and it definitely could have an effect, but I haven't read on it, so I cannot really say much.
Okay. Can you briefly switch your camera off and on because your camera's frozen for me at least. And there you are again. Hello.
Welcome back.
Okay, but that's just I think a curious question of mine. Now, if you look into more maybe myths around uh, ADHD, what are some common things that people think about it that are not true?
Well, I think one we discussed that they cannot focus, right? And
Yeah.
this was one thing. People with ADHD can focus and quite a lot. They have this ability of hyper focus that is n- not the same as good focus in a neurotypical person. Um, Let me think about something that is often discussed as well. When you have, just for your information, when you have ADHD yourself, so much of this behavior is normal to you that you don't see how much it's different until you take medication. I
Mm.
usually don't take my medication regularly because, oh, wow, this is like, no, blah, blah. I don't take my medication regularly because of all the things I read about stimulants and how addictive they can be. But I have to admit that when I take it, I see how much I'm ADHD, how much I have ADHD because I'm so different. I can be calm and I can sit without moving my body all the time. And I can actually listen without interruption, without this being a problem. But this is like off topic. And so this is just something to explain to you why it's difficult sometimes for me personally to talk about the myths because I'm just normal for me. So what are
Yeah.
you talking about? Um, One myth, I think it's very common now that it's a myth. ADHD used to be seen as a childhood disorder. It's
Hmm.
not. A lot of people with adult people have ADHD. It makes me think how much of it is actually at all a childhood disorder because, again, what I told you earlier, the context. We make kids sit still for 8 hours. They have to still just sit and listen and receive information and then go home and continue to be calm and uh, perfectly productive. And they fail. How much of this is actually ADHD and how much of this is our human nature? So to me, this begs the question of how much our own system produces, or not produces, but exaggerates the symptoms. It makes it worse. Makes children suffer, yes, but do they suffer because they're neurologically built differently, or do they suffer because this is just difficult situation to be a student and to have 5 additional classes in order to perform so well to have the perfect opportunity in the future. So yeah, it is anyway. Whatever it is, it's definitely not a childhood disorder.
That's
Um,
that's the such an interesting one because I think people who do not have ADHD think about it, or at least like I'm just talking about my perspective now, because in my eyes, I was thinking about it in that way too, that it is very much, or looks like to me, very much the environment that especially children are not made for the school system that we put them in. And then this idea that if they're just showing the symptoms of maybe the hyperactivity, but also the dysregulation of attention, that it is it is sort of the perception that we have of this productive workforce that can just produce in being an adult and just putting that suit onto a child. They're not fitting that pattern, and therefore they have some disorder. We just need to find a name for it. And then we put this hyperactivity and the attention into like one name and call it that so we can label this. That's a little bit like how it felt to me when it was also suddenly growing, the amount of what is it, diagnostics came up for ADHD, when suddenly more and more people got diagnosed. And before it was just like, oh, he's an active child. And so that, to me, begs the question, how much is it the environment? But also, I know you have some background in the neurological sense of what can actually be seen in the brain. So can you explain a little bit more the difference there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Just such a huge topic because on one hand, some people completely don't believe in the validity of ADHD. Other people think it's exaggerated, and then yet another group of people see ADHD everywhere all the time and believe in it. Like they just honestly just use it as an excuse sometimes. This is general three groups of people, but a lot of people fall into one of those three groups. So let's just start from somewhere. First, yes, we have we have a higher rate of diagnosed people with ADHD due to a couple of reasons. We research it more than ever. ADHD is one of the most researched mental disorder at the moment globally.
Wow. So there's
That's
also
of
a lot of
course,
funding for that.
yeah. If you see a lot of people working on something being funded, research being funded, of course, you're gonna see a lot of conversation, a lot of results, a lot of new discoveries, and it's just a hot topic. Um, why is the hot topic? Partly, I think, because um, a lot of people find themselves relating to this behavior, even if they're not clinically diagnosed. And this could be also just because of our sweet phones and our addiction to social media. Even if you don't have ADHD, you can relate to being hyperactive or inattentive or forgetful. And a lot of things just overlap so much that you just find yourself in it and you want to consume more content around it, which obviously creates more content. And there is more need for research exactly because you're trying to understand it. You're trying to see the boundaries of it. Where does it start? What is and what is not ADHD? And this is still under discussion. Um, the way, for example, depression used to be described as chemical imbalance, and now it's not because, oh, no, 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 now it's all so much more complex than that. This is such a simplification. This is not true. I think with so much focus on ADHD after just 2 or 5 and for sure 10 years, we're going to have much better and maybe even different understanding of ADHD. But the current understanding is that there's a broken pathway of dopamine. So the dopamine that gets to your prefrontal cortex is not regular and it's often not enough. And what happens in your prefrontal cortex is your executive functions. So this is decision making, impulse control. Dopamine is also linked to, because it's produced in the basal ganglia system, so it's linked to your memory. So your working memory suffers. And in general, the way you consume information, the way you actually process information suffers. Like one example to give you is auditory processing information. Sometimes to people with ADHD, verbal information sounds like gibberish. It's not that they don't understand the language. It's just somehow it doesn't make sense. You have to write it down, let them read it on their own pace. Making a person with ADHD read fast is a nightmare. Or you have to literally change the words you're using so that the person can process what you're saying, because with those words it just doesn't work. Um, and this is happening outside of control and outside of context. So when I go back to your question, what is the difference between struggling with attention, because who the heck can stay 8 hours on a chair, and having an ADHD, is the context. Because the person who cannot stay sitting, like a neurotypical person who cannot stay still, is because he already did it enough, or he's tired, or this subject is boring. Um, the person with ADHD just has this general problem, even if it's interesting. It's not
Mm.
that we avoid things that are mandatory and boring. We procrastinate everything, even those things that are interesting to us. Sometimes we just cannot function properly because if you don't have enough dopamine in your prefrontal cortex, that affects you no matter the context. And this is where it becomes really a neurological difference. Um, it's difficult to study ADHD. I think that's why we also have so much clarity about it. I was making this video one time, and because of my video, I was thinking as a former researcher, how would you, for example, study hyperfocusing ADHD people? You're gonna put somebody in a lab and tell them now hyper focus with this um, head, with the when you want to study the electro signals, and you're
Yeah.
gonna put this heavy thing. And I don't know if you ever did the experiment with those, but they have to be glued to your scalp for the electrical signal to be like emphasized. It's uncomfortable. It pulls your hair. Somebody observes you. You're in a new environment, and somebody tells you hyper focus now, so I can see what happens in your brain. Sure. Absolutely. Um, so it is a tricky way to describe what is ADHD versus not ADHD. And to be honest, if I didn't have the experience myself, I don't think I could understand it. I don't think I could see the difference.
Hmm.
The moment I take Adderall and I change is wow, I understand what the heck the difference is. I'll give you one example. The very first time I took Adderall, I had to study for cognitive neuroscience. I loved the subject. I was deeply interested. I had all the motivation in the world, but my head was like over the place. I couldn't. And I was like, okay, I give up. I'm going to take my Adderall because this is important to me. It's interesting to me, and I'm completely failing. So I took the pill. You have to do something for 20, 30 minutes before you actually sit down to it, give it a little bit of time. And I'm sitting there, and I remember this day. I sat there with my laptop, the same room, same place, and I started reading the same thing. And I went through my first paragraph, which was like that big. We talk about 4 or 5 sentences of a paragraph. And all I did during reading that was thinking about what I'm reading. And that was magic. That was the first time in my life that I read something and only thought about what I'm reading. And this is when I realized the constant noise in my head, the constant chatter, the constant distraction, the constant pulling things, my attention into different direction is not normal. This is not how every single human being functions. Have I not taken Adderall, I would have never seen the difference because for me, it doesn't exist, even if it's interesting, even if it's internally motivating. And I think that's the difference.
Okay, that's big. Yeah. Because now I also briefly wrote down, because the things that I find boring myself, my attention goes away so quickly. If I watch a movie that I don't like, I'm like, okay, what else could I do? I'm bored. Oh, the frame of the TV is interesting. Like, and anything essentially grabs my attention that is not related to things that I find boring. But on the other hand, anything that I find interesting, that I feel a natural pull towards, I can easily concentrate on. And I can also sometimes get myself to be concentrated on something that I do not like. I can make it happen. Like, it feels like it's a bit forced, but I mean, I had to get through the psychology study, so I had
Mm.
to put myself through that in some way or form, and that it worked. Like, I could, put my plugs in, put a timer, and then for 25 minutes I'm going to study now. It worked. Um, but that's at least how I understand it now. That's a little bit the difference. So when I feel bored, my attention goes anywhere. When people with ADHD feel bored, their attention goes anywhere. When I find something interesting, my attention can very much stay on it. When people with ADHD find something interesting, they can be hyper focused and cannot let go of it, or they're still distracted and don't,
Yeah.
have thoughts about anything else.
Because the ability to focus is a executive function. This is what
Yeah.
makes you human and a bit of a supposedly higher functional species, higher in terms of functionality. And I'm saying supposedly because there are plenty of examples, animals having better memory than us, being better orientated in terms of directions and stuff. So, this is the different topic. I'm not going to go into this, but what makes you human is being able to control your impulse, being able to say, no, this is important. Importance to guide your behavior. Importance does not guide people with ADHD. It's not nothing. It's like telling me something is important to me, it means nothing, to be honest, for my ability to get it done. Another thing to help understand is when you are in a relationship, for example. Truly, you love that person. That's your person. You really want to spend time with them. The moment they start talking, for example, it's very common for people with ADHD not to keep eye contact when they talk because they get distracted. The moment the other person speaks, they actually focus on the face because they want to ensure that they're listening and don't get distracted with anything else. Right. So the moment actually you start talking to somebody you love and you really care for them and you want to communicate something, right? Your attention, your feelings, everything is there. You're still not going to stare at their eyes and their face because they're gonna change their facial expression a little bit, and you're gonna notice. They're gonna suddenly move a little bit, and the way the sun hits their forehead, and you're gonna notice. You're gonna get distracted. You're hypersensitive to change, so you're gonna definitely notice everything that happens. And you may sound like a total jerk for changing topics, creating a verbal salad instead of actually communicating yourself well, or just you may look like a jerk also for avoiding eye contact because it's very often linked, oh, you're lying to me, or you're not present, or you're not attentive. You basically kind of whatever you're doing, you may look like a jerk sometimes with ADHD, but it has nothing to do with who is in front of you. What does this person mean to you? How important they are. It's just that you are this kind of dysregulated person very often, and you're trying to mitigate your symptoms sometimes. For example, knowing this, okay, I'm going to avoid eye contact. You're trying to regulate yourself because that's who you are, regardless. But it can be interpreted very negatively. And a person I would say that is neurotypical. And I would say this a bit more confidently because I know how I am on Adderall. When I'm on Adderall, I can look you in the face and talk to you.
Hmm.
And
Wait,
to me,
are
that's a
you
difference.
now or are you not now? Just to, are you on
Now I'm
Adderall
trying
now?
my best to avoid looking at myself because I'm gonna start paying attention because I'm very self-conscious about how I look. So I have learned also with YouTube never to look at the image. So look at the
Yeah.
camera, which is very soothing. Right now, I'm actually looking a little bit in at your headphones
Although I
to
think you can you can
focus on
you can
something.
hide your self view.
Hmm. Well,
If
no,
you
now I'm used to this constantly moving creature here
okay,
that is, it's in my peripheral vision. I never look at her, but I got used to it now. And I'm
okay.
having a favorite spot on your headphones that I'm just kind of staring,
Nice.
and that's what's happening.
All right. But you're not on Adderall right now, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're
I
having
think
the unauthentic. You would have no if we one day we record another one with me on Adderall and you put them next to each other, you're gonna see the difference and you're gonna read, oh, now I know.
okay. Maybe we should
Like
do
I
that.
already
Yeah,
start
just
moving. Like I'm not looking at myself, but I know I'm moving and I'm trying to have usually something that is not visible. If I'm having a meeting, for example, like work meeting in Teams, or even when I'm recording for YouTube, I usually have something, even like it's a pen that I'm playing with all the time, but
mm,
it's not on the camera, so people don't see it. They think I'm fine. I'm like, okay, and this is what makes me focus. Uh, and I realized this mostly during COVID. Ooh, during COVID, when everything suddenly became online and we had to have those meetings online and cameras on. I remember one of the first times when I had this meeting in my life, because before that, before COVID, I don't think I had many of those experiences online. There were like 12 people, I think, for one of the research practicals for our psychology education. And I'm sitting there and everybody just sitting like you are sitting. And I'm like moving all the freaking time, all the time. And I was the only one. And because the stupid sound is like picking up, you getting a little yellow thing when you're the one making noise. I was
Yeah.
until I realized I have to like mute myself so at least I don't get in yellow so I can continue to move while everybody else was like, how? How do you still, how? It wasn't long. It was a 30-minute thing. And I was like, yeah. It was
Wow.
interesting for the
Yeah.
sake of context. It was something interesting. I used to like research a lot, so it wasn't a bad topic. It was just you put me on a chair and a camera in front of me. I'm gonna move.
Okay, but now that brings up, at least to me, the topic. You have a successful YouTube channel, at least in my eyes, and you create a bunch of content for that. You have thought through a lot of the content. You prepare it. You record it, which is a pain in the butt when you ask me. You would sit in front of a camera, have to repeat all the lines 25 times in order to get one properly out, and to afterwards edit, to do the thumbnail. There's a lot of work that goes into YouTube, and I presume there's a lot of concentration needed to make that channel also become successful. How is ADHD influencing your current situation with YouTube, or has influenced it in the past years?
It created a lot of anxiety at first because, first of all, you see yourself on camera. I realize how much my face changes. My face tells a story. I have a lot of facial expressions. I've never spent so much time in front of a mirror before. I never realized this about myself. I realize how chaotic I can be with my storytelling. I realized how distracted I can be, how I start the sentence and a point, but then at the end, my point doesn't really make sense. So I realized how I am seen and heard by others. It was horrible. It was horrible. I was like, I hate everything about myself. I hate how I, communicate with my face, how I move my hands all the time. And I sometimes even have those kind of like a little bit of hate comments, how I move my hands all the time, and other people actually say something. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Um, so this created a lot of doubt that I can even do content, a lot of doubt that I can even communicate a message, and just a lot of um, acceptance that it will never be that good. It is what it is. And I just have to drop the idea of becoming like one of my favorite YouTubers. I'll never be like them. I'll just have a YouTube channel. Um, that probably changed a little bit just because now I have more practice. And nevertheless, with practice, you become a little bit more comfortable with stuff.
Mhm.
I don't think my storytelling is anyhow better because I'm still the same person. But I think I just don't care anymore so much. Um, I just try to think, could that help somebody? Could that actually make some little difference for somebody? Yes? Okay, we're publishing this. So I just changed my
Mm.
expectations. I changed why I'm doing it. I dropped down, I gave up on completely on the perfect thing. Sometimes I see it in my head perfectly. It never looks like that. I don't have it in me to repeat it. I don't have the patience to repeat it. I don't have the patience to script it down and make it really nice and I don't have it. It's gonna be a little bit messy. It's gonna look a little bit like I didn't make enough effort. It's gonna look a little bit chaotic, sound chaotic. And my channel is not actually growing so much because I changing topics which the algorithm doesn't like. And I'm okay, fine. The 500 or the 5,000 people who will see that, if some of them feel better, even if they're 5, then that is better than me sitting and watching Netflix.
Mm.
So it affected me in many ways, negative and positive. But overall, I'm glad that I'm doing it. No, I was just saying that it affected me both negatively and positively. And I'm just happy I did it, and I continue to. I have the desire to continue with it, but I also have a lot more acceptance of the reality of it. It will never be this perfectly consistent niche down channel, um, unless I maybe start taking my medication regularly, and then I can function a bit more the way the algorithm would like me. That could happen. I don't think it's going to, because I just don't feel like taking medication every day. But yeah, I see other people with ADHD having content, and I think what helps them is that their content is a lot more. Not all of it, but at least most of them. It's a lot more in a humorous way. They create like a bit of like this funny situations, how ADHD looks like. And because it's funny, it's so much easier to make this type of content.
Mm.
But when you try to be serious and on the same topic, uh, I've seen only one other person who can do it, and she has been doing it for so many years that I guess she has also team behind her to help her a little bit with filtering some ideas, editing, and just a lot of other stuff. Um, or I'm just maybe worse than her in staying on the same topic.
Mm. Okay, but that's so interesting then. There is some preference, I guess, for making a certain type of content, for maybe staying using it, ADHD, maybe to how it can benefit you as well in some way. And is there something that you would, because there's 100% people out there who have an idea, want to bring something to the world, have maybe a project that they want to create, and they know they have ADHD or maybe just some symptoms. What could you give them as some either tips or advice on how to actually bring that thing? They have a big why, they know why they're doing this, but still they struggle so much with actually making it happen. Is there something that you want to give them?
For sure. Yeah, I make a lot of kind of self-coaching type of content, exactly trying to help people with or without ADHD, but a lot of people in my audience are with ADHD. So I try to focus on this. How do you actually get things done, right? And I have a couple of ideas, but if I have to just give you one sentence first and then maybe elaborate a bit, one sentence will be try to befriend your brain and see what you can work together with your brain. And that would mean you like, for example, to change things to spice them up, to make them more fun and interesting. Otherwise, they're boring, right? Okay, then choose one thing that will be the same and be creative with everything else, because then the process will be more fun for you. Let's say, for example, let's say stay on the topic with YouTube just because it's easy. You want to make videos. That's your project. That's your thing. Decide that you will only be, for example, making videos from your desk. That's your constant. The location is your constant. Okay, change type of the day, change type of the content. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, sometimes more scripted, sometimes less. Experiment with
Hmm.
this. Experiment with whether you're talking about something relatable or just a story, or something you read and you're just like giving knowledge and fact. Change whether you are recording on your camera with a full setup or just grabbing your phone and being impulsive, enjoy your impulsivity. Change whether it's just you or you bring your partner, roommate, and you just kind of have like like a conversation from a camera. Allow yourself to be you as much as possible and just have one constant to keep you somehow grounded to the project. That helps me a lot. Another thing that helps me a lot and I recommend to people is think about a routine, just one routine that will make the most difference for you. With ADHD, this is usually sleep. Um, it's People with ADHD are like walking contradiction. We don't like routines, we need them. We don't like structure, we somehow need it to stay within some lines, because we are very good at starting projects and we are not good at finishing them. So we need something to keep us grounded, because we will have the creativity, we will have the inspiration. We're gonna walk mountains when we're feeling hyped up, but we're not gonna climb the hill if halfway through we actually lost interest.
Mm.
Um, and understanding this about yourself and trying to work with it is so much better than trying to fight it. Trying to become structured, trying to become um, the 5 a.m. morning person because somebody else told you it's great. It's not going to work for you. Don't declare war to your head. Spend some time understanding yourself, relating to other people and seeing that, oh, you're like this. Okay, that helps your understanding, right? Spend a bit more time in understanding yourself than going with the impulse of a new idea, because this understanding will help you for your entire life. Um, and then just try to kind of negotiate with your brain. Okay, you are hyperactive, fine. But I would like to learn a piano, for example. Maybe we learn in different contexts. Maybe we buy one of those little things that we can carry to the park as well. Maybe we try to be super creative with where and how we learn, so that you hyperactive, crazy brain are happy, but I'm achieving something in the meantime. So that was one sentence, as you can
Yeah.
see, um, perfectly well.
Well,
Yeah,
I just asked for some tips or advice. I think and that was perfect. And there's another thing, another sort of side angle that influences or is actually a result of ADHD, or maybe sometimes connected to it, let's say. That is somewhat the self-esteem or self-doubt when it comes to, I guess, not knowing your symptoms, maybe not even diagnosed, not knowing that you're different in some way or form or shape. And then how does this play into the whole experience of ADHD?
it's huge, because you, first of all, as a child, usually you are blamed for a lot of your symptoms because you're called lazy. My mom, for example, she just hated the fact that I make mistakes out of being distracted. Like, for her, me being distracted was like a sin, because for her it was like, you have so much potential, you're so smart, and if you only could pay more attention to what you're doing, that's your biggest problem. And I'm like, yeah, kind of no. And as a child, I was kind of like just feeling crappy about myself, I'm failing. That's all I knew. And understanding later on that this is your brain and this is ADHD. Other people like you suffer with that, just helps to cultivate some self-compassion. And just, even if you don't love yourself, because some things about ADHD you're never I haven't found love for some of my symptoms. I don't think I'll ever maybe find, I don't know. But at least you're gonna stop hating it. I think there's a good, you know, gap between love and hate. I can meet myself in the middle with some sort of acceptance, some sort of like compassion, maybe. That helps, because listen, when everybody is criticizing you for something and you on top of that also bitch at yourself for the same thing, it's not gonna get you anywhere. You're not gonna, you know, beat yourself into doing something. Um, and you have to find another way to get off the couch, for example. And usually acceptance, it's not gonna be perfect. Thankfully, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm too impatient and impulsive to be a perfectionist. Um, but just deciding something is better than nothing, I'm just gonna do it. It's okay. It's not gonna be perfect. It's okay. It helps. And the self-esteem, I think, increases when you show up to yourself that you did something. If you drop the ball of perfectionism every time when you filmed the video, even if it was chaotic and completely out of focus, hey, you didn't watch Netflix, you created a video, right? And that helps your self-esteem, that you are capable of doing
Mm.
stuff. Your definition of success has to change, basically. If success means that you achieve this perfect image, this perfect product, if success means that you had an idea and you perfectly realized it, then you're going to fail very often. But if success means I managed to do something that I wanted to do, just the mere fact I did it, the mere fact that I stayed consistent with it in general. I don't make videos every week. I had a 4 months gap twice that I just didn't do anything for my channel. But hey, the channel is still there. I'm still making videos. And that's something. And that helps the self-esteem. Just the success definition has to change. That is
Mm.
the main, I think, factor.
I want to bring that actually broader. What you just said is this does not just apply for people with ADHD. I think so many people beat themselves up for this idea of expectations or this idea that they have of how things should go and should be, and then just not achieving that for whatever reason. Maybe the expectation was just too high. And then just beating yourself up because I should have done that, I should have been better, I should have done this or that. And this is, I think, not just for ADHD, but if you just get yourself to consistently do something and work for something, get up and do something that you know the energy that you put in is not wasted, like maybe when it's towards Netflix or scrolling Instagram or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's actually producing something for you, for the people around you, then that is an achievement, no matter
Mm.
what the end result is, no matter what the expectation might have been out of that or for that. I think that is in general a great way to build the self-esteem for anyone, to just do the thing you intend to do and with the intention just to create something. So I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing this.
I probably got distracted with the topic now that I think about it, because you asked me about ADHD and I probably went a bit like broader topic. But as you were talking and I felt this self-criticism in me, oh my gosh, Evie, you are out of topic, out of, yeah, you got distracted yourself again. See what you're doing. This self-criticism is something so habitual.
Hmm.
I think we just get used to it. And a tip I have is to a little bit try to challenge it. For example, one thing, you're just sitting here, so I'm not advertising anything. But I just got this, for example, it's like a workbook for cognitive behavioral therapy practitioners. But hey, man, if they can use it, you can use it. It's don't believe everything you feel. You don't have to buy this book. I'm not trying at all to advertise anything. I'm just saying that there's so much content out there produced for the sake of helping you, changing the habits you have, the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, and not for the sake of uh, becoming this perfect self actualization. No, 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 for the sake of feeling better. If you're struggling, if you don't feel good, then try to see what it is. Is it the behavior? Is it the self criticism that you're saying? Is it the perfectionism? Try to see what the heck is really stopping you the most, and then try to go and particularly look for that solution. Like just try to be a bit more specific. And talking about this actually gave me to another idea, very ADHD related problem. um i- ADHD is a cluster. It doesn't feel the same to everybody. So you may have strongly expressed symptoms that are different than mine, for example, and that's okay. But I would say this: once you identify what is one or two or three the worst symptoms that you have that really really drag you down, something that is really like mm, difficult for you, instead of trying to improve it all the time and trying to find a way to heal. Currently we don't think we can heal ADHD. As I said earlier, a lot of research is put into it. Maybe that's going to change, but currently we're not healing ADHD, we're trying to mitigate symptoms. And I would say try to avoid constant triggers of what is the worst symptom. Do not put yourself all the time in a situation to test yourself, because then you're just gonna like feed your self critic. You're gonna feed your doubt. You're gonna feed your low self esteem. You don't have to prove yourself every day. It's okay sometimes to just avoid things that trigger you and make you feel really, really bad. Oh, that's it.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think there again, it sounds so ADHD specific, but if you put it another level higher, just check in with your self-critic. When you were saying, "Oh, I'm criticizing of getting off topic," I have a lot of other self-critics right now happening about maybe not speaking as fluently or speaking weirdly or whatever is coming up. And so it's again a general topic of see where the self-critic is and allow yourself to accept how it is right now. It's fine. You're not going to change it. It is the way it is right now. Of course, you could practice in the future, but that's how it is right now. And I think that's a wonderful message as well. And yes, avoid those triggers. Also other people get triggered when you go into certain situations and just it's fine. You don't have to challenge yourself every single day with that. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up. Yes. How's your? We talked before the recording that you mentioned a little, I guess, analogy of I have about 100 energy points when I start the day. Um,
Mm.
and how many do you have left in this recording now in this podcast? I have another topic idea, and so I wanted to check in whether you have some more energy left.
I was probably too. I feel like because I try to um, stay somewhat consistent and focused and not go too all over the place. ADHD is something I can just talk forever about because either I read something or I felt something or I found out something. It's just so many things that can come up. Um, and I really tried to produce somewhat cohesive answers to your questions. So I feel exhausted by the effort.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm reaching a point where I will be a word salad, um, producing a word salad from now on. Yeah, I'm at 2 units of energy.
All right, then we'll keep that topic for next time. The connection of sort of phone addiction or social media addiction that in current society, how that plays into I think in that in ADHD, but also generally, I think that's a very interesting topic. I'm curious about, but that will have to wait for next time. Awesome. Is there
Yeah.
something that now I didn't ask you about ADHD, or something that you still feel like that is misunderstood and you would like to give the people listening a better idea, or maybe another tip or trick that you want to give them?
Mm, maybe something I said about the medication that I don't take it regularly. I just want to clarify how much of this is personal choice and it's not prescriptive. People have different levels of experiencing their symptoms. I maybe I'm lucky in some regards. I don't have it that bad in some domains, so I can afford to not take medication every day. Although, if you ask my daily psychiatrist, I am ruining some other parts of my life because of this. So everybody has their struggle for sure. You may not see it because you see an episode of a person, right? You see this podcast or this video or you read this book, and that's an episode of this person. And you may think, oh, they're doing so much better than me. They're so much put together, and I'm not like that. You don't know how they are at night or the moment they turn on the camera and how chaotic they are for the rest of the week. So don't put the expectation on yourself, first of all. And second of all, if I don't or somebody else don't take medication every day, don't tell yourself, oh, I shouldn't be doing it either. It is addictive. It is what it is. That's our current understanding of this. As long as, as much as we're talking about stimulants, because for ADHD, there are two major groups of medications, stimulants and non stimulants. And the stimulants are mostly two main ingredients, amphetamine more, which is the main ingredient, but it's more recognized as the brand name Adderall or Vicron. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the other one, which I also struggle to pronounce, the main ingredient is Mito. No, it's basically Ritalin or Concerta, but Ritalin and Concerta is the brand name, and the main ingredient is something long and complicated. Um, but my point is, this is the stimulant medication, right? It is addictive. You have to be a bit careful. You have to be cautious a little bit about it. There's non stimulant type of medication that maybe is better. I cannot talk about it. I've never had it. I've never experienced it. But just don't medicate yourself because you saw something on the internet. Either way, don't increase your dosage. Don't stop taking it. Just I want to be very clear with this because I did create at some point a video where I was talking about Adderall and I was very highly opinionated, which I'm allowed to be. But when you're talking on camera, you have to be a bit more careful about it. Um, I wouldn't give Adderall to a child. That's my personal viewpoint. But hey, I shouldn't also take this platform to tell people what to do. So do not take my personal opinion as a prescription what to do. That's what I always wanted to clarify to be able to sleep at night.
Oh, thank you so much. I think for the all the input, I have the feeling you have so much more information about this, and it felt like we have to cram all of this now into this like 1 hour conversation. So I think there's probably room for a lot of more questions. I'm curious about a continuation of this, but for now, I think there's first of all we went through actually some myths, and I actually got a better understanding of what ADHD actually is and how it affects me, people around me, or other people that I don't even know yet, but that I will come across at some point, and then finding a way to better understand them and deal with them is, I think, so valuable. And also how that affects your inner critic and the difficulties of growing up with ADHD and not knowing that it is. That I think is also so helpful. So I think a lot of people who have this or have at least symptoms of this will be very glad to have heard you, and they can find you and all of your content further on the Evie Run YouTube channel. That will be a link to the description. And I'm looking forward to getting more information about this because you said that there are a couple of reasons that more and more people are being diagnosed. One, being that there are more research, but the other one, actually, there's a lot of people as well with a lot of symptoms, and there are different variations of that. And so it will be a recurring topic, and it will be a lot of my clients having that too. So I'll be looking forward to learning more about that. For now, thank you so much for being here, and that I could ask you for so many questions that gave me all of your 98 bits of energy for the day. I hope you have nothing.
The general unit of energy is still there, but the capacity to focus and stay on the topic, that was all yours.
Thank you. Wow. I hope you don't have anything to do today.
No. That's another ADHD thing. If you have one major thing scheduled for the day, you don't do anything before that. Partly because you're afraid you're gonna lose time, perception of time, and you're gonna be late, or you're gonna exhaust all your capacity to focus, and you're not gonna be able to perform at all. So yeah, I had nothing before that, and I have nothing planned after that because that was my event, and I'm very happy and thankful that you suggested this, initiated it. Um, I don't know if many people will benefit from this again because of my own self-criticism that I was probably too chaotic. But if some people out there feel like, okay, if she can do that, I can do it as well. She's not perfect, but she's still doing it. Maybe I can also work on my project in this imperfect way, and that'll be great. If there's anyhow such influence, that'll be a win.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and I hope you will reach more people. And I think your intention was to make them feel heard and understood, and that sounds so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. You listened to the full episode. Your investment to a more calm, confident, and doubtless self. Now you can make a commitment to yourself and help others discover this podcast. Simply by subscribing and following the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I hope to see you here soon again for the new episode dropping every other Thursday. Talk soon.